Astro Bot, developed by the Sony first-party studio Team Asobi, released in 2025 to vast acclaim, including winning the Game Awards main accolade, Game of the Year. To many, this was the first Asobi game they'd ever played. But how does a studio come out of almost nowhere and win the most public award in the gaming landscape? Well, because the history of Astro Bot is much larger than just Team Asobi. Their history should be recontextualized as the history of Japan Studio and of Sony Computer Entertainment as a whole. Sony, as a console manufacturer and game developer, began in Tokyo, November 1993. This early era of Sony Computer Entertainment involved hiring up, fostering talent, building a plethora of sub-development studios, and releasing what are now icons in the gaming industry. Parappa the Rapper, Wild Arms, Everybody's Golf, Gran Turismo, Ape Escape, Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, titles that, while now dormant, dominated the PS1 and PS2. After many a merger and moving office, 2005 saw the studio transformed into Japan Studio. However, this transformation nearly coincided with the release of the PS3, a console which famously had no games. Comical exaggerations aside, it was not a good era for Sony or for Japan Studio. The studio hemorrhaged talent and none of the teams were able to release any standout hits. Even with Sony proper's prospects rallying with the release of the PS4 and the concurrent failure of the Xbone, Japan Studio had a harder time recovering. Which isn't to say there weren't any good games released. I recently played through Gravity Rush and loved it, but this era also brought a snack. If there's to be one noted upswing, it would be with the creation of the sub-studio Team Asobi under Nicolas Doucet. Established in 2012, Team Asobi spent much of its early life creating games that were less games and more demos. Their first title, The Playroom, was a free collection of minigames pre-installed on every PlayStation 4, and was basically a tech demo for the new controller and the PlayStation camera that I'm sure everybody purchased. I never purchased. Unsurprisingly, they also developed the Playroom VR to do the same thing, but for the PSVR. Speaking of the PlayStation VR, I'm sure all 12 people who purchased one, it sold 5 million versus the PS4's 113.5 million, loved Asobi's first full-fledged video game, Astro Bot Rescue Mission. By all accounts, I'm sure it's great, just inaccessible. In reality, most people, myself included, had our first introductions to Astro with Asobi's follow-up, Astro's Playroom. Astro's Playroom is, you guessed it, another tech demo designed to showcase the features of the newly released PlayStation 5 and came pre-installed on each. It also marked the downfall of Japan Studios proper. Looking at Asobi's success and the relative failures of all the other Japan Studios, Sony made the decision to, quote, re-center the teams around Team Asobi. In practice, this meant many developers were losing their jobs. Those that remained would be brought into the now standalone Team Asobi, and Japan Studio proper was to be shuttered. My history with Astro Bot should really be more recontextualized by my history with the PlayStation brand, in that I don't really have one. My first Sony console was a PS Vita. I played Persona 4 Dancing All Night and Shovel Knight and The Binding of Isaac on it. I bought a PS4 and played a few more titles, and now I have a PS5. I've played a few of the more notable games, the Spider-Mans, the God of Wars, the First Horizon, but largely preferred games like Nier Automata, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, Control, Chicory, Tunic, or Outer Wilds, multi-platform titles that just so happened to play on the PlayStation. Which is all to say, when I opened up my PS5 and loaded up Astro's Playroom, despite being a massive platformer fan, I was not in the prime demographic. Don't get me wrong, I love Astro's Playroom. It was one of my favorite experiences of 2020, but while this game/demo is a solid platformer, platforming didn't always feel like the main focus. Astro's Playroom is, first and foremost, a celebration of PlayStation's lineage. Spread throughout each of the levels are a bunch of bots dressed as characters from iconic PlayStation intellectual property. Over there is Joel and Ellie Last of Us. Right there is Kratos of War. Hey, would you look at that? It's featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. There's Cloud Strife's sword. For me, it was, at most, neat to see these characters. Even if I had played the source game, it didn't really add anything. Additionally, all the collectibles were fully modeled recreations of PlayStation hardware throughout the years. Yup, that's a PS1. Guess that's the VR headset I didn't buy. That's a chip thing? These models are remarkably well rendered. It's an impressive technical feat, but it would have been much more interesting to someone who had, at least touched a PS2 before. As a person with almost no connection to this platform or its history, everything outside the game elements fell flat. Luckily, the game elements were excellent, and I immediately found myself wanting Asobi to have another go, this time with the full-length game. In the presentation where it was announced, Astro Bot was the only thing I cared about, and on the day of release I was counting the minutes until I could head home and play it. Astro Bot's story is thin. Not to say a good 3D platformer needs a good story to go along with it, but even by those standards, Astro Bot doesn't have much. Astro and all his other bot friends are cruising around in their spaceship, which is a PS5. Straight up a PS5. When a big slime guy shows up, steals the ship's CPU for some reason, wrecking the entire ship in the process. Other key PS5/ship pieces and around 300 of Astro's best friends are scattered to the wind. Astro finds himself with no friends, a busted mothership in a desolate desert. Luckily, his trusty dual speeder, which is of course straight up just a PS5 DualSense controller, landed nearby. With it, he can traverse the galaxy, finding lost bot friends and retrieving the stolen ship pieces to rebuild the mothership. And I had to look it up. The PSN store page refers to Astrobot using he/him pronouns. Diversity win. The androgynous robot is a boy, I guess? PS5 owners should already understand how Astrobot controls. He has the exact same moveset as in Astro's Playroom. He can hop once, then use feet lasers to hover for a short while more. He can do a hit at regular intervals, and can do a spin attack by charging up for a short while. Also, his little feet lasers can hurt enemies or break open glass. The game is separated into a few different worlds, each containing a number of individual levels. To get from area to area, Astro flies his little speeder. On the overworld, it's controlled with a joystick, as one might expect, but while flying into each level, the speeder can be controlled by tilting the real-life controller back and forth, which is mirrored by the in-game controller. It's neat. The levels themselves are very much standard 3D platformer collect-a-thon fare. Given the space and galaxy theming, it's very easy to compare the game to Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, but with its linearity and hidden collectibles, it's designed much closer to Super Mario 3D World. As such, Astro runs and jumps and fights his way through a series of challenges, collecting coins, lost bots, and hidden puzzle pieces as he goes. Each stage culminates with a flagpole where he and all the rescued bots celebrate before boarding the speeder and shooting back off into space, most having a bonus challenge to hit a moving container during takeoff. Timing it right nets a bonus 100 coins. Which, mostly linear levels, lost bots are green stars, puzzles are stamps, and flagpoles are, flagpoles. And the overworld map lets Astro choose levels in an open map instead of by linear path or by hub world. Astro Bot is wearing its inspirations on its sleeve. At least Team Asobi was inspired by a great game. Unlike the Super Mario series of platformers, Astro Bot does not get power-ups that he can take from level to level, but certain levels do have special item-like powers that are incredibly fun to play with. These powers are realized as a fun animal or thing that attaches itself to Astro, and they add brilliant twists to the gameplay. The effects they garner all differ, but each are controlled with the R or L triggers. Some of the most exciting moments in Astro are when I unlocked a new animal friend and got to find out what they did. One of the earlier guys balloons Astro, making him float for a short time. Kinda like the P-balloons from Mario World and 64DS, or the Blue Yoshi fruit from Galaxy 2. Another lets him pop out a platform, kinda like the cloud suit from Galaxy 2. Plus, there are even a few that don't have direct Mario comparisons, like one that lets Astro dash forward, one that slows down time, or my personal favorite, long fists. Aside from platforming, the main hazards in Astro Bot are the enemies, and they're all fairly basic. These guys run at Astro. These guys run at him, then push out spikes. These goobers spit things at him. This guy spits more things at him. These guys spit even more things at him. All the enemy types from Playroom return, but a good chunk of new guys were added to keep things fairly fresh, and a few enemies added can only be defeated by the special power-ups. The bosses are yet another highlight for the game. Each are truly fantastic. Some of the regular levels culminate with a smaller mini-boss, and each of the hub worlds have a colossal guy guarding them, and it's actually quite amazing how well these bosses are done. Even the ones that fell under the hit them 3 times rule still felt amazingly fresh. Levels would alter, attack patterns would get appended to, a couple bosses changed their battles entirely halfway through. Each was a truly epic fight, utilized the special power-ups in incredibly fun ways, and was a blast to take down. Last thing on levels, after the boss fight, one final level is unlocked, and they're all based on a popular intellectual property under the Sony Interactive Entertainment brand. After rescuing bots and getting puzzle pieces, Astro can return to the crash site to see them mulling about or rebuilding the mothership. Normal bots are doing the manual labor, while the unique video game-dressed bots are spread throughout the hub, lazing about. The bots are more than just eye candy. With enough rescue, they can team up to achieve various tasks throughout the crash site, like lifting up a boulder off another bot, or lifting up some platforms, or chaining themselves together to make ropes and walls. Also, the puzzle pieces are used to create extra hubs for Astro: the Gacha Lab, the Speeder Garage, Outfit Collection, and the Safari Park. The Gacha is for unlocking items for the character bots, the Garage changes the color of the speeder, the Outfit Collection has different fits for Astro to wear, and the Safari Park is a photo mode demo. I love Astro Bot. It was so refreshing playing a truly fantastic 3D platformer that was not developed by Nintendo. The levels were so intrinsically fun. While most weren't too difficult, they were all imbued with so much creativity that resulted in every path being a joy to navigate and explore. The levels are designed in such a way so that younger or less experienced players can run through and find some of the more obvious spots while still having a relatively good time. And from that perspective, the game is really fun to play through. But going all out and attempting to collect everything is even better. Tracking down all the bots, especially those that were well hidden, was so rewarding. I'd often hear their little cries of "help me," then search up, down, and around every corner looking for a way to get to them. In comparison, the puzzle pieces and secret exits were harder to track, neither made any noise, and were often placed much more deviously. So whenever I missed one, I was fully reinvigorated to jump back in and truly scour every nook and cranny. I only used this feature thrice, and the first time was for testing purposes, but for only 200 coins whenever Astro returns to an already completed level, he has the option to get help from this little helper birdie buddy, and this is a genius addition. The bird acts as a radar, gesturing to Astro whenever he's close to an uncollected bot, puzzle, or secret exit. Although it doesn't know about everything, like say those eggs in the Uncharted level, regardless, it's a fantastic addition for any collectathon to include, and it even got me out of a golf-based bind that I walked by like a dozen times. The bosses are, dare I say, better than most recent Mario foes. Their designs are all fairly simplistic, one of the game's biggest downsides. There's a big robotic gorilla, a big robotic chameleon, a big robotic snake, a big robotic bird, and the generic goober who started this whole mess, but actually fighting them was so intuitive. Every fight utilized a different one of the special powers right off the bat, making the fights distinct. But then, every phase of said boss were also distinct. The gorilla had Astro dodging wave after wave of attacks, then smashing a bell, then poking out his eyes, then breaking open his teeth. The bird had Astro spinning it around and around until he could land a hit on its head. The snake started as a 3-phase fight, then culminated with Astro trekking across its back as it rocketed through a forest. The substantial set changes and wide variety of attack patterns made for some incredibly memorable moments. The smaller bosses, while less set-piece-y, were just as unique. There's a skeleton pirate that had Astro climbing up his body and ripping his head off. There's a spooky ghost with an exciting journey through a crumbling temple. There's a genie who summoned a tumultuous dust storm. While not as grandiose, each made for excellent battles. Team Asobi, having the full power of the PS5 at their fingertips, restrained from overcomplicating the gameplay or levels, but they didn't let the extra power go to waste either. What they did was added so much more intricate detail than, say, a Switch could handle. Every level is stunning, breathtakingly gorgeous. Astro Bot is a true visual feast. There is so much going on at all times. The skyboxes are so involved. The details found in every object or being within each level are so fine, and the amount of objects thrown at the camera is intense. Boxes are smashed open, and hundreds of small things coat the level. Little ball-sized objects that exist solely for Astro to walk through and punch around, to spin and send flying. There is so much on screen not because the game needs it, but because Team Asobi wanted to prove that they could and that it was fun to run through. And they were right to do so because interacting with these little guys is so fun. Hey, that DualSense is pretty cool, isn't it? This thing is shaking and vibrating whenever anything happens. Astro runs through a bunch of things, the controller shakes as he touches each object. Astro attacks something, it vibrates. He walks, each of his individual footsteps are rendered through the controller. And each of these vibrations are differentiable from one another. A punch feels almost entirely different from a delicate step. It is so fine-tuned to the point that game mechanics are mapped to the vibration. Certain walls or floors shake when Astro needs to interact with them. That's where they flew a bit too close to the sun. During normal gameplay, everything feels different enough to make hectic action sequences so expressive, but trying to find the exact right buzz while slowly walking around, it felt muddied. The rest of the controller is also really dang cool. The resistive triggers are used very well to give a bit of oomph whenever exercising one of the special powers, and after collecting each ship part, the game presents a minigame to fix and clean it up. These were therapeutic, borderline perverted sequences. I tilted the controller to pour in coolant, jerked it to hammer in nails, rocked it to saw off vines, all before giving the piece a satisfying chunk as I reinstalled it into the video game console, spaceship. There's only one of these per part, but ooh, each of them were satisfying. The music was an ever-present joy. It's very much different from any of the musical styling Nintendo has used with their various platformers, which added to the refreshing feeling of a different studio having finally made a good one of those. The score varies between styles, but given Astro's robotic nature, many of the tracks lean towards more synthetic sounds and instrumentations, with a few having Astro himself chiming in with his own name. I am Astro Bot. My favorite aspect of the score was how throughout each level, the track would continue to grow and build upon itself. At the start, the song would be simple. Then as Astro progressed, more instruments or synthetic vocals would be added, with the track being fully bombastic by the climax. At the end of the day, I love a good platformer. Unfortunately, not every development studio is able to get the formula just right. I think it's due to two major factors: the team's skill and the time they have to develop. By way of example, Nintendo has led the platformer world in both. Their first-party studios, whether the Mario teams or the Kirby team or the Yoshi team, understand how to make a platformer good, and Nintendo has immensely deep coffers. They're able to let these studios work on a game for as long as they need to make sure it's as good as it can be. This is especially exemplified recently. Mario Bros. Wonder was not given a deadline during development, and if the rumor is to be founded, Nintendo delayed the Switch too, so the Mario team had longer to perfect Donkey Kong Bonanza. But most other studios aren't Nintendo. They can't afford to let a team sit with a game for as long as they truly need in order to craft their magnum opus. Astro Bot is the first game in quite a while that fits into this Venn diagram. Team Asobi, with its former Japan studio members and its decade of experience making smaller titles, was able to gain the skills necessary to develop a good platformer, and Sony, to their credit, let them cook. Let Team Asobi polish this game, the controls, the graphics, every single boss, every single level, to the upteenth degree, resulting in one of the best modern platformers ever. I just wish it wasn't a Sony advertisement. Despite everything, despite how much I love platformers, despite how much I love this game, I am still, somehow, not in the prime demographic for Astro Bot. It was a good enough gimmick in Astro's Playroom. All the PlayStation memorabilia and the PlayStation tangential characters appearing throughout the levels, the fact that the entire game literally took place within a PS5, it all worked because Playroom was a free demo title. When Sony and Team Asobi announced a full, proper Astro Bot game, I was hoping for more Astro Bot, not more Sony intellectual property. This almost wasn't the case. Doucette has stated that early development team considered stripping all the PlayStation branding from the game, but citing fans of Playroom who'd be disappointed by this, they ultimately decided not only to add it back in, but to double down on it. I can't help but feel this was an immense mistake. Because I've been doing this the whole time, I'll bring in one last comparison to Nintendo, this time with the Super Smash Bros. Series, Donkey Kong, and by proxy modern Nintendo, released in 1981. Super Smash Bros. Released in 1999. In those intervening 18 years, developers at Nintendo created a plethora of now beloved characters, each starring in their own fully thought out and, most notably, standalone games. Then, and only then, were these characters brought together under one banner, and also notably, under a different genre of game. Astro Bot was not offered this same affordance. Aside from the VR title that nobody was able to play, Astro has had his ability to grow as a character, as a cast of characters, as a world, cut off at the knees. There's no doubt in my mind that if given the chance, Team Asobi would be able to craft a well-thought-out world for Astro to play in. A cast of supporting characters and visually distinct enemies. A narrative that actually pulled in the player's attention, even if it was as simple as the current one is. And I know this because when the levels are able to be their own thing, when a giant tree sings to Astro, when a level swaps from night to day with the hit of a button, when all the friendly animals pose for the camera shots, there is a warm charm. And it would have been amazing if Team Asobi expanded that part of the world building. Instead we get the PS5. Instead we get the DualSense. Instead we get a cast of characters that, at best, let us go, haha, I remember that. In their decision to lean into the Sony brand, Team Asobi stripped anything uniquely Astro and replaced it with a watered-down version of Ready Player One level references. The worst examples of this are the themed levels. Each of the 5 worlds culminates with an entire stage based on one of Sony's intellectual properties. Ape Escape, God of War Ragnarok, Uncharted, Loco Roco, and Horizon were all made into levels with their own quote-unquote unique abilities. The Ape Escape level was alright. It tasks Astro with catching runaway apes with a big net, but the fact that the series hasn't had a new title in 14 years is a bit of a slap on the face for existing fans. The God of War level was boring. Throwing the axe did not feel anywhere as good as it did in the original game, and the level itself was a linear check with no interesting challenges that was more designed for people to go, haha, I recognize that. The same can be said for the Uncharted level, only the power-up of gun made enemies trivially bland. At least the action set piece at the end was interesting. Horizon was more of the same, but using the bow felt better, at least. These levels were Astro Bot at its absolute worst. Gone was the fun music, interesting level design, and fun mechanics, replaced with characters from different games placed in a way so that none could be even missed. It's imperative that I find Silas. I absolutely need to collect Sully. Heaven forbid that I don't have Mimir. The Sony intellectual property-based levels were no better than theme park rides. Heck, 2 of them weren't even on rails. I am not coming to Astro Bot for a theme park ride. I'm here to play an excellent platformer. The exception was the Loco Roco level. This level was amazing. Like so many other games referenced, I haven't played Loco Roco, or even know what it is, but the level was immaculate. Astro turns into a blob that gets controlled through both 2D and 3D sections by tilting the controller, much like Mario Galaxy, I'm sorry, can break into a bunch of smaller blobs and is so vibrantly colored. This level felt like it was actually a love letter to Loco Roco, taking both the gameplay and aesthetics and doing something amazing with them. The other themed levels look even worse in comparison. I, once again, feel the need to reiterate that I am obviously not in the prime demographic. I've seen many other people take immense joy in seeing things from their past repackaged as slightly interactive toys that stand around a giant PS5 waiting to get smacked by a robot. I just wish Nicholas Doucette and the rest of Team Asobi trusted themselves to build something more than a big, walking Sony advertisement. And that was my complaint. My singular complaint. The over-reliance on existing Sony and tangentially Sony PlayStation intellectual property, even when many of them haven't received proper updates in years, if not decades, dampened the game somewhat. Other than that, Team Asobi crafted a truly amazing game, one that rivals the likes of Nintendo. Almost every single level was a blast to explore. Almost every single gameplay mechanic was fun to use. Completing the game was a breeze and always a joy. all the while looking and sounding better than any platformer that's come before. And that was all before the now multiple iterations of DLC levels that have been released. The Christmas themed level is currently my favorite. Exploring a big open area is Astro at its peak, and even though I don't have anyone to race against, the speedrun levels were all tough tracks that felt great getting to the end of. Also, 2B from Nier Automata was the biggest time I went, haha, I remember that, so the DLC gave me that. I was so excited for Astro Bot, and I was not let down. I cannot wait for Team Asobi's next title. Overall, I give Astro Bot a "these robotic penguins" out of 10. I mean, look at these guys, they're adorable. This guy's in the very first level just chilling out on a lawn chair, and those other ones are just around. It's amazing. Oh, and this one is a level mechanic. It lets Astro swim better. I was so excited when I saw it. It's only used once. It's the best. Thank you so much for watching. Not enough people have gotten to Astro Bot yet. If you have a PS5, you should fix that. Afterwards, let me know what you think of it. You can leave it in a comment or let me know elsewhere online. I'm at Mario8 everywhere, links in the description. While you're here, feel free to like and sub if you feel like it too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.